Live from our Windy City studios, this is the Chicago Python lunch break. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ali Sivji. I am one of the organizers of Chicago Python. I'll be your host for this afternoon's event. But before we do begin, I want to take some time to talk about what's going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I was up for like a few hours last night debating if we should actually hold this event. Should Chicago Python follow the examples set by players in the NBA and postpone this event? I decided against doing so in order to use this platform to say a few words to our community. 2020 has been the strangest year of my life, and I'm definitely not alone in having this feeling. 2020 is a shared human experience. What started off as isolation and loneliness when the pandemic first began has now turned into anger as I see instances of racially motivated violence. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and now Jacob Blake. We shouldn't know these names, but we do. What am I really trying to say here? Honestly, I'm not too sure. I'm just a dude who knows a little bit of Python, and I know how to organize some events here and there. I really don't have answers to what's happening right now. I just know that as humans, we all have the obligation to use our voice to speak up wherever we see racial inequality and we see racial injustice. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Jacob Blake. Speak their names, demand justice. Okay, so let's get started with today's meeting. All right, so thanks again for joining the Chicago Python livestream. Let's see, where's my slides? One sec. Okay, there we go. We have a code of conduct. More information is available on our website. What is Chicago Python? Chicago Python, or Chippy as we like to call it, started back in 2003. We've grown from our humble beginnings to become one of the largest Python communities in the world. We have over 6,000 members. We actually hit 6,000 last night. On top of our monthly meeting, which happens on the second Thursday of every month, we have special interest groups focusing in on more specialized areas of Python. There's one for finance, one for data, one for web dev, and one for algorithms. Where can you find us? If you go to joinchippyslack.herokuapp.com, you can join our Slack workspace. There's around 2,000 people talking about what's going on inside in the Python community in Chicago, as well as the wider Python ecosystem. We also have a Twitter account. You can follow us at Chicago Python. All this information plus more is on our website. I just also want to make everybody aware of our upcoming events. On Thursday, September 3rd, we have our next Algorithm SIG event. And on Thursday, September 10th, we're going to have our next general main meeting. And there's going to be a fantastic talk about self-driving RC cars. But that's enough about that. So today we have a fantastic talk. We have Reuven Lerner talking about how to sort anything. I've seen him speak a couple times at virtual conferences. He's one of my favorite speakers in the Python community. Really excited to have him on. We do have a spot where you can just sort of interact with our community, ask some questions. If you look to my left, my right, I can never remember. There's a window. You can just type things there, and you can interact with everybody on the stream. I'm going to bring on Reuven to the stream. Hey, Reuven, how you doing?
I am doing great. Thanks, Ali. Hi, everyone.
Where are you calling in from?
I am in Israel, in a small city called Modi'in, which is halfway between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem.
I think you are the farthest guest we've ever had on our live stream.
I'm honored and pleased.
Awesome. Do you mind introducing yourself to members of our community?
Sure. So I'm Reuven, and I am a full-time Python trainer. I've had my own business since 1995, shocking as that is to say. And for the last, I've been using Python for close to 30 years at this point. It's about 92, 93, off and on. And for the last 10 years or so, I've really done away with most of my consulting work and my development work. And really, I've been focusing on doing Python training. So when there's no pandemic, which is the usual state of affairs in the world, every day I'm in a different city, different country, different company, doing all sorts of corporate training. I've got 10 or 15 different courses that I give on site and online using WebEx and Zoom and so forth. As of this year, of course, travel is not really happening. And so I've been doing all of my training online. So it's a good thing I've been practicing to do that for a while. I recently published a book with Manning called Python Workout. Yes, remember these physical books? I know, they're like artifacts nowadays. And in addition to my corporate training, I have a lot of online courses that I offer, various video-based courses, and also a bunch of, I'll even show you the t-shirt, which you would have gotten if you had gone to PyCon, except there was no PyCon this year. Oh, I see it's inside out. Called Weekly Python Exercise, which is, you'll be shocked to hear, a weekly Python exercise. Basically to, okay, now you can see that I'm not really a real fashion model, but I am a geek. And basically, basically every week you get a new exercise to improve your Python skills as part of a community. There we go. Okay, terrible. But you get the idea.
I actually have one of those shirts from like a previous PyCon. It was a little big for me. It's like I should have actually worn it today.
That's fine. Oh, here we go. Now yeah. It's like, there we go. Yay. And I printed up a whole bunch of these for PyCon this year as well. And then I told the t-shirt people, forget it. But yeah, so I have great fun. I mean, I hope everyone enjoys their work. It gets a lot of satisfaction out of it. And I get the satisfaction of knowing that if I do my job well, then other people are able to do their jobs well, and they're able to understand more, be more productive, and help their companies and help their organizations. So I have great fun. And every day people ask me questions that I don't know the answers to. So they also force me to learn new things. So I'm counting on all you folks. I'll also mention that I did a PhD at Northwestern. I was telling Ali before, I finished by the skin of my teeth. If you're thinking of doing a PhD, talk to me first. So I have a huge affinity for Chicago and Chicagoland. And if this is the best I can do in getting back there after a few years, then I'll take what I can get.
That's awesome. Yeah, I am also a Wildcat, so yeah, definitely good to see alums around the world. But you mentioned that you've been doing Python since like 92, 93. Can you talk about how did you first find out about Python and get into it?
Okay, so this is a fun story. So I went undergrad to MIT, and I was the editor of the student newspaper. And one day, a friend of mine at the newspaper comes back. He says, I was just at this talk. There's this guy named Tim Berners-Lee. He invented something he calls the World Wide Web. This is going to be big. We should really get in on it. So basically, we downloaded the software for an HTTP server, which was all of 30 lines, 40 lines of Perl. And we emailed him, and he emailed us back and said, oh, great, I'll put you on the list of all the websites in the world. Which strangely he's not doing anymore. He has some other things to do at the time. And so at that time, people were starting to talk about how do we connect this web thing, which is really for documents, to programs in the back end. And they had just come out with this thing called CGI, the Common Gateway Interface. And you could write your CGI programs in C, or if you were like a normal human, you want to do in some sort of higher level language. And so people started using Perl, people started using Python. And so I learned both languages about the same time. And truth be told, I spent a lot of time doing more Perl. And then when the Perl community sort of imploded, I did a bunch of Ruby. And that whole time I was also doing a lot of Python along the side. And anyone who would ask me, what language should we learn? I'd be like, if you're new to programming and you want to use a really powerful language, Python is totally the way to go. And so about 15 years ago, when I was talking to a company about doing some training here in Israel, like a training company, and doing it with them, they were like, Ruby, that's nice, but boy, there's demand for Python. And I was like, I really do like Python. And it turns out to have I hitched my wagon to the right horse, because boy, oh boy, I never would have imagined back in the early 90s that Python would be so ridiculously popular as it is now.
Yeah, it's I always see those questions that Guido gets are like, what would you change if you had to do it all over again? And he's like, if I had to do it all over again, I would change nothing. It's just such a happy coincidence that Python grew into becoming this powerhouse language. So yeah, it's awesome to see that rise.
Yeah,
so
it's amazing. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah. So you're mentioning that you were traveling all over the place. So a lot of our community members, they're really not getting a chance to interact with friends and family as much as they'd like, dealing with a lot of the effects of sheltering in place. How have you handled sheltering in place and COVID?
Look, so first of all, it's hard, and it's good to know that it's hard for everyone. It doesn't make it not hard, but it makes it emotionally a little more satisfying to know that, and what's amazing to me is it's everyone all over the world. Like some people know my obsession is I've been taking Chinese lessons for years, and I have family in the US, and I'm able to talk to people around the world, and everyone is experiencing very much the same same thing, maybe less so in China now, but like it's a lot of anxiety. I've been following this since it was in China and sort of been watching it travel. And I was like, oh boy, this is going to hit us. It's going to be very bad. Look, I've basically been working from home and have not left the house for very much since like February, March. Yes, like in Israel, we can go to the store and so forth if we want to. I've been going out to a few restaurants, eating outside. But for the very, very great part, it's been mostly working at home. The advantage that I have is that I'm always working with people, or often working with people. That sort of interaction has been very good. And having students and lectures is good. Part of a few Slack channels. So, but it's not the same. It's not the same. And it's definitely a missing part of my life. I'll also tell you, like, I typically go to synagogue on Saturday mornings. I've gone, like, as my parents like to say, since I was 2 weeks old. Like, I can't imagine a time when I didn't go. It's a part of my life. And we can go here. But like you have to be 2 meters apart and very few people. You have to sign up in advance. I'll tell you, everyone going, being so far apart, not really spending time there, everyone in masks, it's just depressing. So for the first time in my life, I've just like not been going on typical Saturday mornings. And I feel the difference and I feel myself changing. And the good news is I keep saying we will get out of this, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time. And until then, we'll do these sorts of meetups, which are not the same, but as good as possible.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are finding out they're more extroverted than they originally thought they were. Yeah, but I think that's it for all my questions. Are you ready to start your talk?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I should add, like, so my talks, and you'll see in a moment, like, I don't really use slides. I mean, when I do conference presentations, I often use slides because, tight time limit, and there's not really much interaction with the crowd except afterwards. I like to have very interactive experiences when I'm working with people, when I'm teaching. So I'm going to be using Jupyter Notebook. I'll show you in a moment how you can like see it mirrored and everything. But I really, really invite people to ask questions. I know there is a delay. I said like 10 to 15 seconds. So maybe I'll like batch the questions or see like if it's referring to something earlier. But I really do encourage people to say things, explain things, and so forth. And hopefully this can be less of a lecture and more of a, fun learning for everyone, including I expect people to ask questions that I don't know the answers to. That is okay. So yeah,
awesome.
Let's go.
Please take it away.
Fantastic. So yeah, this is how to sort anything, and this is based on a talk that I did actually at EuroPython earlier this year. I guess it was just last month. Oh my God, time is like so warped nowadays. So like, here's the basic information about me, but more usefully and importantly, and I'll put this in the chat. Oh, I guess it would be host and other guests, so it won't really be that helpful. But basically, if you go to GitHub, my GitHub, github.com/Reuven, if you look for the Chippy August 2020 repo, this is going to be auto-synced. So it's running on my computer, but it'll be auto-synced to GitHub, and so you can load and reload it. It should be about a minute, 2 minutes behind if you really want. And of course, it'll be there after the talk as well. So if you want to look it up, if you have trouble sleeping at night, feel free to take a look at this. So let's talk about sorting appropriate, since that's the name of the talk, right? And so Python makes it ridiculously easy to sort things. So if I have a list, let's call it numbers equals, 10, 3, 4, 7, 12, 15, 13. And I want to sort these. I can, if I want to, use the list.sort method, or I can say numbers.sort. And then, of course, numbers, the actual list, has changed. This is generally a bad idea. This is kind of frowned upon in modern Python because I have changed it, right? Basically, numbers.sort didn't return a new list that was sorted. Rather, it changed the actual list. And this is a few like effects that we're not necessarily going to want. One of them is if I say x equals numbers, now I have two variables referring to the same list. And if I say numbers.sort, right, yes, I've sorted numbers, but I've also sorted x because, again, it's two names referring to exactly the same list. The other thing that people often sort of don't realize or get wrong is if I say numbers equals numbers.sort, right? Don't do this. And the reason you shouldn't do this is that now, if I do a print numbers, you'll see that it's none. Now, this is great if you want to free up memory, right? But that's, or if you really didn't like your data. But for most people, most of the time, this is not something you want to do. And the problem here is basically that any method, and I know this is like a crazy kind of rule of thumb in Python, but any method that changes an object, a mutable object, should return none. And so by that rule of thumb, sort is actually doing the right thing. By any normal, let me just turn the air conditioner here. Sorry. By any normal, like sort of human expectation, that's really surprising. So for all of these reasons, it's usually better not to use the sort method. So what can we use instead? We can, of course, use the sorted function in built-ins. And so now if I say sorted numbers, again, it's a function, not a method. So I say sorted numbers, and I get back the sorted list. But I have not changed the original list. We can think of this as like a functional version of the sort method, where it's doing exactly the same thing, except that instead of changing the original list, it's now returning a new list. So I can say x equals sorted of numbers, and x is certainly sorted. But if I look at numbers, the original one, not sorted at all. And so we're going to be using the sorted function here. If for whatever reason you want to use the list.sort method, you can. And all the things we're going to talk about today actually apply to it as well, except the fact that, well, you can't actually change it. So one question that my students often ask me is, well, what kind of sort algorithm does Python use, right? And how can you change it? Well, I'll answer the second part first, which is you can't change it, at least not without going into the C source code. And so the sort algorithm in Python was invented by a guy named Tim, and thus it's timsort. That's right, timsort. So all of you who've like spent lots of time learning about merge sort and quick sort and so on and so forth and heap sort, forget it. It's all timsort, folks. And actually, my impression is that Java's default sort mechanism is now also timsort. And timsort is actually kind of clever. What timsort does is it basically says, what we can do is take, if we have multiple sort of parallel mini lists, let's take this list that we already have, and let's break it into several parts, maybe 2 or 3 elements, numbers in each of these parts. And then what we can do is we can sort of, if they are ordered already, then we can merge them together. We can do sort of a merge on these multiple parts. Well, what if we make sure that each of these parts are ordered by just sort of assuming that data is normally ordered in real life? And so these are called natural runs. And so the assumption is that some of these will be natural runs, and timsort sort of picks those out. And where there's not a natural run or where it needs to extend it, it'll do what's called an insertion sort, sort of find the place where it should be added. So timsort is basically doing these mini sorts and then merging, the mini sorts then merging. And that turns out to work pretty well. What it means, though, is that it's going to need to compare things. So how's it going to compare them? Well, it might be obvious, but it's going to compare them with our favorite less than, equals, and greater than operators. So with numbers, what is it doing? It's basically saying, okay, 10 and 3, which is less? 3, so 3 comes first. And it's going to do this not for every possible combination of numbers, but for a large number of the combinations of numbers, right? This is part of where it gets to get its speed, because it's not going to actually do a comparison of all the numbers by all the numbers. But it needs to be able to compare them various ways. So numbers we know can be less than. But it turns out that we can also sort other things in Python using less than. Right, so if I say here, words equals, this is a bunch of words for my talk, split. And now let's say I want to sort these words, truly a useful thing to do. So I can say sorted of words, and we get back a new list of the words sorted. You might be saying, wait a second, how are the words sorted? How does less than, equal, and greater than work with strings? Well, it turns out that like it alphabetizes them, right? We know this, we understand this intuitively. But what's really going to do is, in order to sort, we need to compare 2 words. And again, it's not going to compare every possible combination of pairs, but it's going to compare a lot of them. And so what's going to do is it's going to check, so it's like compare word 0, 0, and word 1. Let's call it A and B. Word A 0 and word B 0, right? And then and which comes first? And if they're the same, then then check. Let's do word A1 and word B1. What have I described here? I've described the way that we look up words in the dictionary, right? For the time that we were in elementary school, I assume that all of you are old enough that you learned what dictionaries and books and looking up words were and didn't just like rely on Google to do that. But basically, you look at the first letter of 2 words, and if they're the same, they look at the second letter, third letter. And if you have 2 words, one of which is a subset of the other one, well, then the shorter one comes first. So what we have learned to do as children in terms of alphabetizing, Python does that using less than and greater than. And so we can compare things. So I can say, this is less than that. No, it's not. But if I say that is less than this, that's true because, of course, that comes before this alphabetically. It's checking the first character, the second character, the third character. But this algorithm for comparing things actually can be extended to any sequence in Python. Because, of course, if I have a list of lists, compare, compare list A 0 with list B 0, right? Then list A 1 with list B 1, and so on and so forth. So it's using exactly the same sort of comparison algorithm based on the fact that in Python we have these sequences, strings, lists, and tuples that work the same way. And indeed, comparing tuples works exactly the same way also. So if I have my list equals, and let's try this here, like 2, 4, 6, and we'll say 2, 3, 5, say 1, 3, 5, and we'll say 2, 1, 2, and 1, 1, 1, 1, and then we'll put in a 0, 1, 1 just for good measure. So if I do sorted of my list here, what is it doing? It's going to sort it by first the 0th thing, index 0. So we have 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. And here, do we have any that are more than once? No, we don't. So let's add one of those just for fun, like 2, 1, and 3. And now if I do it, you'll see that we have 2, 1, 2, and then 2, 1, 3. So it works for strings. It works for lists. It just works. It's really great. It's all the same thing. And in case you didn't know this, I can also say here, let's do this, words, or the sorted of words, say reverse equals true. And what does this mean? This means that instead of being from smallest to biggest, from earliest to latest, it will instead be from biggest to smallest, that is, say, from last to first. So here we have the words alphabetized, reverse alphabetical order. Okay, so far, so good. Okay. All right, so then let's say here, what about if I want to sort by something else, though? What if I have words? And I don't want to sort them. I want to sort them by word length. This is where things get a little more interesting, right? So timsort, right? So timsort is normally sorting A versus B. But now we want to sort the len of A versus the len of B. How can we do that? And it turns out that timsort gives us a hook into doing this. What we can do is we can basically say, well, I want to use this function. I want to apply this function to each of our items here, to A and B, and I want to use the result of the function in the comparison. And the way we do this is we provide an argument to the key parameter. I can say here, sorted of words, key equals len. And what's going to happen then is that len is going to be applied to each and every element in words, and the result of len is going to be used to sort them. But note, we're still going to get back the original words. It's not that we're going to get back the lengths of the words. We're not going to get a list of word lengths. Rather, we're going to get the words themselves. So here we have A is of my, right? These are the short words, longer and longer until they get, well, that's obviously not very long, right? So we can, now it's really important to realize that we are not changing the list here, right? That's sorted. And we are simply using this key function as applied on each of the words. So what can be a key function here? And well, we see here that we can sort the words by their length. That's really nice. And of course, I can combine these things. Sorted with words, a key equals len, and then reverse equals true. So now they're going to be from longest word to shortest word. But what if I want to sort numbers by absolute value? So you might know that there's an abs function in Python. So abs of -5 is 5, and abs of 5 also 5. So what I can do is I can say here numbers equals, and let's say here -5 and 3 and 2 and -10. And 8 and -1 and 4. And then I can say sorted of numbers. Well, it's going to sort them numerically. But if I say sorted of numbers, key equals abs, well, now they're going to be sorted numerically by absolute value. And again, we're not getting back the absolute values. The key is being used in the sorting, but it's not being used in the actual values there. We can also do something else. What if I say here words equals, this is a test for my Python talk for Chippy. Split. So now if I do a sorted of words, the good news is that it's sorted. The bad news is that we might not have wanted to sort this way. This is a case-sensitive sort because, well, Python's a very sensitive language. No, because Python basically assumes that we want to sort it by what I would call ASCII value, what modern people would call Unicode value. And so it says, oh, capital letters come before lowercase letters. So if we want a case-insensitive sort, we can run a function or a method on each word. And I can say here, sorted of words, key equals stir lower. And I can't tell you how often people ask me how to do this, right? So I can run stir lower here, and it works. And now things are alphabetized case-insensitively. What you don't want to do, right? And yet people sort of insist on doing this, is they first lowercase all the words, right? So I could say here, for example, right, one word dot lower for one word in words. And now I get back the list of these same words, but everything is lowercase. Then I can put that in sorted, right? Put that in list comprehension in there. So the good news is it's now sorted, and it's sorted in the same order. The bad news is that I've lost all the capitalization. So these are two different things, and you should realize that. Just realize, oh, there are comments here that I should be taking. Okay, very, excellent. Sorry, I just realized that I didn't have the tab open to the right comments. Okay, so here's the other thing that you should keep in mind when you're dealing with this stuff. I see this mistake all the time. People are really tempted, because it's a function, to try to execute this, right? Don't do this. First of all, it won't work, right? It won't work, and that's because the key function has to be a function that takes an argument. Which argument? Well, it's going to be applied. We are not the ones executing stir.lower or a key function. It is sorted that is executing our function again and again and again, once per element in our list. And so if you try to do this, not only will it not work because you need to provide an argument, it won't work because we don't want to pass the function the result of running the function. We want to pass the function itself that will then be applied on our behalf. So we're not directly running the function. The function is being run by sorted. Well, what if I want to do something a little more interesting and a little different, right? What if I want to create my own key function? Can I do that? Of course I can. So let's start with something really, really silly. Let's say I want to sort by word length, but I also want to sort of announce what is being sorted. Let me show you what I mean by that. Def by loud len. Let's do one word. Return, well, let's do print. Right now, sorting one word, and then we'll return len of one word. So notice what I've done here. I've defined a new function, and this is a convention that I've come up with. It might be great, it might be terrible, but I do it. I always call my key functions by something, and that means that I can say sorted of words key equals by loud len. Notice I'm not executing it, just passing the function name. So what's happening now? Well, by loud len will get one word because sorted will apply to each of the words. It's going to print what it's sorting, and then it's going to return the length. So it's going to give us exactly the same results as the len, but it's going to be loud about it. That's the name. And we see now sorting, and you can see indeed that sorted goes through each of the words in our list. It's going to print it out, and then based on that result, it's going to sort them. It also means that it only has to run the key function once per argument. Previous versions of Python, like Python 2, it allowed you to use the key function, but also had a throwback to an older thing, which would be the CMP function. And the CMP function took two arguments. Like it actually called them A and B, and you were responsible for getting these two and then deciding which was supposed to come first. You returned either -1 or 1 or 0, depending on which one was supposed to come first. That's gone in Python 3. There is no more CMP function, and that's good because, first of all, you can do anything you want with CMP, also with key functions. I keep trying to think of examples that it won't work, and I haven't thought of any. And secondly, now it only has to apply the function once to each argument as opposed to once for every pair that it's comparing. So it's going to run the function many fewer times. Okay. So we can basically use a key function. We can write a key function. We can do whatever we want in here, as long as whatever it returns is sortable. Meaning, as long as whatever it returns has access to less than, equal, greater than, we are totally fine. It doesn't even have to be the same type. Notice here we are getting in strings, but we are returning integers, meaning that if they're being sorted by these integers at the end of the day. So what else can we do with this? Well, we can do all sorts of wild things, actually. Let's try this, for example. I'm going to say here numbers equals, and I'm going to say here, let's do 300, 200, 10, 50. Let's do, 4 and 80 and 6. Okay, obviously, if I say sorted of numbers, it's going to be in numerical order. But who would ever want to sort numbers in numerical order, right? I want to sort the numbers by their lengths, right, i.e. number of digits. So how can I do this? Well, I could say here def by digit count, one number. I can say here return len of stir of one number, right? That's going to do it. That'll show them. And then I can say sorted of numbers, key equals by digit count. Oh, great news. Now we've sorted it. As we know, it's going to be 4, 6, 10, 50, 80, 300, 200. Is something wrong here? No, it is not. We are not sorting them numerically. We are sorting them by the number of digits. Okay, yeah, but like, why is it 300 to 200? So it turns out that Tim sort is a stable sort, right? If two elements, I should say, have the same sort value, they remain in their original order, right? So basically 300 to 200, they both calculated to have the same digit count, and thus they remained in that same order as we had before, right? So here I was getting in numbers and I was returning numbers, but they were not at all the same numbers. Okay, what else can we do in terms of a custom sort? Well, I had my list from before. All right, so let's say I want to sort my list. Let's do my lists elements by their means, right? The arithmetic mean. So I can say here def, by mean, right? One list. I can say here return the sum of one list divided by the len of one list. And now if I say sorted of my list key equals by mean, it's going to calculate the mean and return a float. And now we're sorting them by their means. Now it's not going to be that different, I guess, from what we had before. But you can see that 2, 3, 5 and 2, 4, 6, which were at the beginning here, now they're all the way at the end. If I were just to do sorted of my list, it might actually be very close. No, like we can see here that the means actually do scramble a little bit. Phew, that's good. That's good. Always good when you're coming up with these examples on the fly that it actually works out okay. So we can do things with lists and we can do things with strings. We can also do even like crazy wild things if we want to. So what if I want to sort words by their vowel counts? So I'm going to say here def by vowel count, one word. Say here count equals 0 for one letter in one word dot lower. So I'm going to lowercase the word just to like make it easier. I'm going to say if one letter in A-I-O-U, then count plus equal 1. And then I can return the count. So now I can say like by vowel count on, elephant, right? And it returns 3. So now what I can do is I can say here, let's do this, words equals, this is a ridiculous but useful example of vowel counts for my Python talk experience. There we go, split. And now I can say sorted of words by key equals by vowel count. Now it's close to being by length, but it's not by length, right? Now what's going on with these words? Well, these words all have one vowel. I guess Python also has one vowel. Talk has one vowel, right? So they all have one vowel in them, and thus they are going to be in their original order because of the whole stable sort business. So you can do all sorts of stuff, but we can even get into like more kind of weird things. What if I want to sort file names in a directory listing by file size? Now, of course, like there are operating systems that do this for us, but why would I ever rely on an operating system? That would be craziness. So what I can do is I can get a list of files in, well, I guess I don't want to do in the current directory. So I'll do it in /etc, always a fun place to get things. How am I going to get a list of files? Well, my preference is always to use glob, right? And I can do glob.glob of /etc/star, and that'll give me a list of files there. And I'm going to have to double check that it's actually a real file just in case I have problems, right? So I can say here import os.path, right? And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do this. I'm going to say here by, well, let's do this. I'm going to say here file names. Well, I guess I can just do glob. There we go. Come back. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say sorted of glob /etc. If I just do that, it's going to alphabetize the names. But I'm not interested in alphabetizing them. I'm interested in getting them by file length. So I'll say here key equals by file length. And now I can say def by file length, file name. Now what am I going to do? Well, I can basically say here return os. Well, I can say if os.path.is file, I think it is. Yeah, is file of file name. Then return os.stat. Yeah, I should be able to do stat of file name. What's it called? I wrote down for myself st size, right? And then we'll say else will return 9999. Well, I guess we'll actually return 0. Fine, we'll just do that. And now, what do you know? I have indeed sorted them by size. Right now, of course, if I were to check it, let's see if I can check this here. Oh, that was really useful, eh? There we go. All right, we're going to see, hopefully, things that are pretty similar. Obviously, there'll be some like differences here because of like the permission stuff. Oh, okay. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because like it's a little long to check these things. Let's look for NTP in there. All right, NTP.conf is 22. Apple save. Okay, looks like it's pretty good for me. Now you can tell why I'm an expert in testing, yeah? Okay, so we were able to sort them by size. We could also do something crazier, right? Like I could say here, let's sort our file names by the number of vowels in each file, right? So basically, we're going to talk about Lambda functions in just a little bit. Haha, just you wait. So I could do something like this. I could say here, sorted of, and once again, we're going to say glob.glob of /etc star. And we're going to say here key equals by vowels in file. Oh, well, we have to define this then. Def by vowels in file name. So what am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to open up the file. I'm going to read through it. I'm going to count how many vowels there are. Count equals 0 for one line in open file name. And then for one character in one line, if, I guess we do a lower here as well, right? If one character in ALU, then we'll say count plus equal 1. Now return count. And we could say here also, try. Let's do that, just in case. Except, don't ever do this, right? Except pass. All right. And now if we do this, we will be counting how many vowels there are in each of the files. Again, we can go into the files and double check. If you're checking the number of vowels in your Etsy directory, you've got other problems going on, I'd say. But basically, you see how we can really keep our API very simple here. And I love the fact that we can pass functions to other functions. I love the fact that basically sorted comes with a default way of sorting things that says, you know what? If you know better than I do how to sort things, go for it. I will let you do that. Well, what if we want to do something a little different? What if we have a list of dictionaries? All right, so here I'm going to copy one in that I prepared. And this is one of me and my children who love to star in my my talks. Or so I've told them. No, they do. Why is this now people equals? Oh, haha. There we go. So what happens if I try to sort it now? I'm going to say sorted of people. And it will not work. And it won't work because less than is defined on strings, on lists, on tuples, and of course integers and floats. It's not defined on dicts. But we can get around this. We can get around this by using a key function. So how can I do that? Well, I can say here, def, let's do it by age of one person. Return one person age. Easy enough, right? And now I can say sorted of people, key equals by age. Ta-da! All right, and so now we've indeed sorted people by age, 14, 17, 19, and what do you know, I'm 50. All right, what if I want to sort by something else? What if I want to sort by last name? I can do that, right? Def by last name, one person. It's getting easy, right? Return one person, last name. And now you've sorted of people, key equals by last name. Also done. Oh, wait, by last name, last name. Oh, it's just last. Haha. Stop that. There we go. And now it works. It actually helps. Right, and you can see like my last name is unhyphenated, my children's is hyphenated, and so mine comes first. So far, so good. But what if I want to sort by both last name, by last name, and then first name? Now how are we going to do it? It's actually really easy. Def by last first, one person. I'm going to say here return one person last, comma, one person first. What am I doing here? When you use a comma, you're actually creating a tuple. And you can use parentheses, but you don't have to. And it's pretty traditional when you return a tuple. We return more than one value, you just return it with a comma between them. So I'm actually going to be returning a tuple here. But Python knows how to sort tuples. I'm returning it something that it can check. What's the index 0? What's the index 1? So it's going to say here, if the last name matches, then we are going to do this. So I can say here, sorted of people, key equals by last first. And it works great. So we're actually doing pretty well here, right? You can see here that I even resorted by first name. So first name ASA, and here it's AAS. So it did actually work. Woohoo! All right. So far, so good that we're able to do this. But as someone pointed out in the comments before, why are we working so hard? Can we use Lambda somewhere? So Lambda is one of these things that often gets people very sort of surprised and confused. Lambda creates a function. Remember that when I use def, I'm really doing two things. I'm creating a function object, and I'm also defining a variable. And so Lambda does the first part of that. It creates a function object without defining a variable. So, and now it can't have any assignments in it. It has to be one expression, one value it's returning back. But here I'm returning a value. So I could do here, sort by age with Lambda. So I can say here, sorted of people, key equals Lambda, one person, age. And what's going to happen then? This is a function, no more and no less than the functions I was passing before. And so that function object will be passed to sorted. Sorted will execute that function object once per person, use it. And here we go. We've sorted people by age. What if I want to sort them by last name then first name? Well, I can do that. I can say one person last, comma, one person first. Oh, and I need to use parentheses now because otherwise Python gets confused. And there we go. And that works fine as well. So really, we can use Lambda here. And people like me, dinosaurs like me, who grew up like using Lisp and using other languages where Lambda was standard, are like, great, wonderful. But the fact is that Python doesn't really encourage us to use Lambda that much. It's a little weird. It's a little like restricted. And there are other ways to do the same sort of thing. And over the last few years, I've discovered and really been excited by the operator module, and especially I could just say import operator. And the operator module re-implements all the operators that we have in Python. Add plus, minus, all sorts of other stuff like that, plus, so to speak, plus square brackets. Those are, of course, at the end of the day, a method call in Python. So what I can do is I can say here, sorted of people, key equals, watch this, operator item getter of age. And this is exactly the same thing. It is a function that, when applied, returns square brackets age. Ta-da, it works. But you can even do more than one thing. I could say here, I can say last, comma, first. Mapping 1, 2, 3, well, why and how does Python discourage using Lambda expressions? So my impression is that Guido doesn't really like Lambda, that he sort of he was like strong-armed into putting in the language, and it's there. He doesn't really want to keep it around. So he sort of intentionally hobbled it. That, okay, like, we'll allow you to have it, but it has to be one line, has to be an expression only. None of this nonsense that you can go creating like all sorts of long things. And he actively encourages people just to write regular old functions. So I would say it's like a cultural thing. Lambda is still in the language, obviously, like it works. But I would say like the culture of Python is one of discouraging people from using Lambda. But it's still there if you want to feel nostalgic. Okay, all this is kind of nice, but what if I want to create my own classes, right? So I can say class person, and I can say your def init, self, let's say name, right? And then I'm going to say here self.name equals name. So what if I now say, let's say people equals, is what we performed with it the other day is asking, I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm going to guess that Lambda is actually a little faster because it's a keyword, but I'm also going to guess that they thought about that. And at the end of the day, like if you're worried about counting cycles on like using a built-in keyword rather than using something in the standard library, I don't know. You're probably, I would argue that you're looking in the wrong place. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say here, I'll just create 4 things now. Say multi equals person. Put in my children here, right? Equals person. And we're going to alphabetize them, right? Equals person. And then I'm there as well. My wife does not want to appear in these things. All right, and I can say people equals now. And Ruka. Okay, so now I have a list of 4 people. And now I'm going to say sorted of people. And it's going to say, sorry, you can't do that. You can't do that because we don't know how to use, like, where's there a less than? Well, luckily, we actually do have a way of doing this because less than is, there's a way to add less than to our objects. I can say def under LT for less than, self, and other. So what's happening is when you say A less than B, the LT method is being applied with the thing on the left, the thing on the right. The thing on the left is going to be self, the thing on the right is going to be other. So I can say here return self.name less than other.name. And now if I say sorted of people, it actually works just fine. Of course, it would be nice if I actually had a way to see it nicely. So def repr self. return like person name equals. There we go. And now when we sort it, we'll see that it is indeed sorted by name. Okay, so we're able to sort in that way. And of course, we can sort by more than one thing. If I want to, I can then do a sort here. Let's go back and add. Let's do this. Say, actually, I'll just copy. Well, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's just copy this and add ages as well. So we'll say self name age, self age equals age. They'll say Amolta is 14, Shikma is 17, Atara is 19, and I am old. So now we create all these things. And now, oh, I should copy the LT. Okay, so now we've got less than, and we're just checking name. But if I want to, I can check name, right? I can check first, self.age, comma, self.name. It's a little silly, like unless you have twins, in which case I'm sure they think about it a lot. Right, and so now we're going to actually sort by age first. And so sorted by people, sorted by people. We can see that basically, stop that. People. There we go. And now we're sorting by age. Well, no, we're not. What's going on here? Sort. Oh, because I'm not doing a key. Haha. Sorted people. Oh no, I am. Wait a second. What's going on? What's going on? What am I missing? Person, LT, self-age, self-age. Sort of. Okay, let's figure this out quickly. All right, let's make our repr a little better. Watch this. It's going to say here, vars of self. 14, 19, 15, 17. That's interesting. Why? Oh, because it's self-age. There we go. Now it should work out just better. There we go. See? No bugs in Python except when you're in front of other people. All is good. All right, so we can do this sort of thing, and we can set this on our own objects, and this is pretty common. You'll probably also want to set an EQ of some sort, EQ of self and other, and that's like equal, right? And then you just, and it's up to you. You have to decide what should be the same, what should be different. So I can say, return of, I can do vars of self equal vars of other, right? And vars is this fantastic function that returns all of the attributes that were locally defined on something. And then we can see if things are equal. What if you want to do greater than? Like, can I say here is, greater than Shikma? True, right? Shikma greater than Atara, right? False. So it sort of kind of knows it, but not necessarily what if I say greater than or equal to. By the way, don't compare your children in this way. They really won't enjoy it. Right? Now it's going to give me an error. So you can actually go back to this. Let me copy it and put it down here. Go back to this. You can say, from functools, import, what's it called? Total ordering. And then I can say here, at total ordering. And what that does is it puts a decorator on a class that says, oh, there's LT, there's EQ, I'll just fill in all the rest. And now I can do, like, is she greater than or equal to Amalt, and it'll say true. Again, don't tell your children this sort of thing. Okay. Oh, yeah, I see someone noticed the age thing. One last thing I want to show you. This, of course, is the standard way to define classes in Python. But there is a new way as of Python 3.7, which is data classes. So I can say here, from data classes, import data class. And I can say here, data class. And then a lot of this goes away. Watch this. I'm just going to say here, self.name, stir, and self.age, and stir. And all of this goes away. And now I can create all these things, and it'll work. Oh, self. Self is not defined. Oh, duh. Much better. They're class attributes. They don't need self. And now if I say, like, sorted of people, well, it's going to say, wait a second. I don't exactly know. Oh, I have to add the order equals true. Sorry. I forgot about that. Order equals true. And now it will actually work. And now it's going to do the ordering. Now you'll notice that it's ordering by age. What if I really want to order by name? Then I have to actually change the order of these attributes here. I have to say first age, then name. Actually, I guess it's doing age. Wait a second. That's kind of weird. It's ordering by, oh, no, it's ordering by name. It is ordering by name. Okay. And if I want to do it by age, then I have to like change the order of these things. So age comes first, which is, I think, a kind of strange way to do it. I'm surprised, actually, that's the way they decided to go with it. But that's what they got. So what have we seen? We've basically seen that this sorted function, which everyone kind of learns early on when they start using Python and playing with it, it's actually very, very deep and very, very sophisticated. We can use it to sort simple things. We can use it to sort complex things. If it turns out that we want to sort in our own way, all we have to do is provide a function. And often we don't even have to provide a function. We can use things like operator item getter, operator adder getter that works for dots. You can define how you want your objects to be sorted on your own classes, your own data classes. You can do things with, as we saw also with dictionaries and so forth. No matter what, you can basically sort, as I say, you can sort anything. And it's like amazingly simple in its API and also very deep in what it can perform. So that is what I wanted to show you and share with you. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, I will be delighted to take them. It doesn't have to be specifically about this. Thanks for paying attention and for the questions and comments as well.
Thanks so much, Reuven. Can we give Reuven a round of applause in the chat? That was fantastic. I can't believe you're like live coding this whole thing. Like I'm just like sitting here in awe. Like I would not have the ability to do anything like that. Also, while we're waiting for questions to come in, and again, if you do have questions, ask them on the Q&A section right over there. So like you've seen a lot of people learning Python. What is one thing that you would say levels up people's ability more than anything else?
So again and again, it comes down to understanding the built-in core data structures, strings, lists, tuples, dictionaries. If you have those down pat and you know how to mix and match them and how to use their methods, that is like, it's worth a ton. Because people often come in, especially if they're coming from other languages, they're like, oh, I need to build a class for this. Maybe, but not necessarily. The other things are understanding how scoping works, the LEGB rule, and understanding how attribute lookup works. If you get those three things together, the data structures, LEGB, and attributes, everything else just falls into place.
What's that LEGB?
Oh, sorry. That's sorry. It's local, enclosing, global, and built-ins. So these are the 4 places where Python looks for variables. And it looks in that order. So if you're in a function, it looks first for local variables. And then it says, oh, I didn't find a local. I'll look at the enclosing function, meaning a function inside of another function. Didn't find it there. I'll look at the global scope. Didn't find it there. I'll look in built-ins. That's how you can do. Oh, so people do this all the time in my classes. They're like, oh, I need a string. So I'll say stir equals hello, right? And then, right? And then they're like, oh, I'll do stir upper on A, B, C, D. What do you mean upper takes? Oh, actually, this worked, huh? Oh yeah, upper takes no arguments. Like it's just super, super confusing here. And this is because you have defined this, like this is global, right? And so you've created a global variable stir that blocks your access to the built-in. It's even more obvious. By the way, you can get out of this by doing del stir, which looks scary, but works.
Oh,
right. So
that is super useful. I didn't know about that. That's awesome.
So like people get into trouble all the time with this. So LEGB, super, super, super important. By the way, I've proposed several conference talks about it. Everyone's like, oh, scoping, please wake me up when it's over. So I'm going to keep trying.
No, I definitely think I love how you just go deep into something. I definitely think this is a conference talk that people would love. We did get a question from Math King. Could you possibly use sorted with a key argument when trying to sort classes?
So you mean like sort instances of a particular class, or sort like you have a list of classes you want to sort?
I would think it'd be sorting instances. That's what it sort of sounded like to me.
Okay. So yeah, let's go back to when I created my class over here. Yeah, so let's see. So when I do sorted here, so sorted of people, it's going to use the built-in dunder LT, right? That's what's going to use to do this, right? But let's say I don't want to do that. So I can say here, key equals let's say name length. And now what's going to happen is it's going to look for that function. So I can say here def by name length of one person. I'm going to say here then return len of one person dot name. Right? And so I can totally do this. And sure enough, now we have by name length, which is not so exciting. Well, we have like 5 letters than 6 letters. But we can totally do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it might make sense to use some of these dunder methods just to make your code a little bit cleaner. There's always human ability as well, and just you don't remember exactly why you did that one thing. So yeah, try to follow conventions when you can. So Karina had a question. I have a data frame that has a column that contains user input. Some rows contain numbers, other contains dates. and other contains free text, so just many different types of information. Would you use the sorted function to sort this column?
No. And the reason is that you don't want to use sorted. I mean, when you say data frame, I assume you mean pandas. You don't want to start using sorted and other sort of traditional Python stuff on pandas things. Like it's optimized to do its own thing, and it has its own built-in sort stuff. I never remember the sort, like the sort syntax off the top of my head. I always have to look it up. I know, embarrassing given that I teach pandas, but such is life. But basically, the moment that you start using something like sorted, it's going to run a for loop over all of your things. And the moment you start doing for loops with NumPy things, you've lost all of the optimizations that they've done behind the scenes. Now, that said, in pandas, you can do sorting and you can apply your own function to things. So you can do something very similar to what I did here in pandas as well. You might need to first apply the function to get a new column and then sort based on that column. The moment that you have different, now in pandas also, if you have numbers and dates and free texts, meaning strings, pandas will basically see this as an object column, right? Object basically says, I'm throwing up my hands, Python, like it's your thing. And then it's going to basically try to sort things that's going to run into trouble. So try to avoid that. You want to make them all the same type if you're going to sort them, almost certainly.
Awesome, thank you. And actually, I'm going to have one more question at the end, but our second last question, penultimate question, is there an example from your work where you value sorting in the pre-processing stage for an NLP project?
I have no idea. I am unfortunately I did a little natural language processing back when I was an undergraduate for a research project. So that would be in like 1990. And I've heard that the state of the art has improved slightly since then. So yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing that like, I don't see why you would want to sort things like natural language processing. If it's like other data science models, I can't imagine that sorting is going to help it at all in understanding the context. But I don't know. Now you got me like inspired to go look this up afterwards.
Also, Cassandra, if you do have this question, check out the Chippy Slack, and we can sort of help work. When I say we, I mean sort of the general we, the royal we of like we can totally help you figure these things out. That's exactly what our Slack is for. But yeah, one last question for me before you go. Like, I love how your talk sort of just explore something. Like you had one at PyCon, I believe it was a function dissection lab, where you just like took something and sort of just like went really deep in it. Where do your inspirations come from for talks?
So first of all, thank you. Yeah, I like to understand sort of how, I find that for myself at least, let me back up even. One of the things that I've grown to appreciate more and more over the years in Python is how at the end of the day, how simple the language is, how it uses a few simple pieces put together in clever ways to get this language that we know and use and love. And so I find that by digging into how something works and sort of pulling away the curtain, it's easier for people to understand. I certainly understand things better if I understand sort of what the thinking is behind the scenes. And so it also comes, I'll tell you, like I have this like advantage that I'm teaching people every day, and I sort of see where people's conceptual or misconceptions are. And it's often because they don't understand how things are working and how they're implemented. So I get curious about it. I see how sort of far I can go, starting with something simple and digging. And inevitably, when I'm doing even like a talk like this, I learn new stuff along the way. Like, oh, is that how that was implemented? Is that how like the nuances worked? So it's fun for me too.
Yeah, I know. And the one thing that you said that is like I want to reiterate is like knowing data structures about Python is just like the thing that's going to push it over the top. Like knowing the difference between a set and list is going to save you like so much time. So yeah, like digging into that is definitely a lot of fun. Before we do let you go, do you have any calls to action for our community?
Look, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much. This is great fun. Look, if you want, I do have a free weekly newsletter that called Better Developers. I currently have, I think, about 19,000 subscribers. Every week, it's a new article about Python, some aspect of it. And I use it to, again, explore ideas, things that I've wanted to learn, that my students have wanted to learn. You can get to that at betterdevelopersweekly.com. I'm sure, I don't know if there are like notes or something, but I'm happy to pass that along. It's also at the top of the GitHub repo there in the Jupyter Notebook. You can get to it through my site. I'm on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel where I've been uploading things about once a week or so. And of course, there's my book as well. And I would be delighted to hear from people. I'll also put in a plug if people work for companies where they're interested in Python training. Since everything's online, I can easily get to your office through the magic of the internet. So let me know and I'll be happy to talk to you about that.
Awesome. Thanks so much again, Reuven, for joining us on the Chicago Python livestream.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
All right, so that was Reuven Lerner talking about how we can sort anything. It was awesome just diving into just that one function. You think it's simple, but there's so much going on behind the scenes. So that's pretty much going to be it for us. Thanks to everybody out there for tuning in. If you're still here, you learned something and you had some fun, go down below and hit that like icon or hit that like button. It really helps us out and it sort of gives me an idea of how interested people are in these different types of events. This is the first time we've had a lunch SIG in a few months, so sort of excited to see how this ends up. People do like this event. Let me know. We can definitely schedule more going forward. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. My name is Ali Sivji. We'll see you next time.